welcome back to another episode of the OHP podcast. We don't have a name yet, actually, at all. So anyway, but I'm here with Christian today in the office, and Michael's actually on a shoot. He wasn't here last week, but he's here. He wasn't here this week either because the guy is so busy. But nevertheless, I wanted to start the episode off, talk a little bit about graphics.
Yeah.
We know we talked about color last week and how that influences change within the mind and things like that. It's so interesting. Go check it out if you guys have a second. But you're a graphics guy. You're the dude that is bringing us to the next level on graphics and being able to just update this area so well and understanding like the graphic design and how the kinematic topography goes and like moving and all the things involved with that. You're so interested in that. And so we've been able to bring that to the forefront. Talk to us a little bit about what it is that happens in Christian's mind that allows for graphics to just look so cool in this sense.
I think, and graphics are something I kind of stumbled into accidentally. I have a background in graphic design. That's what I went to school for. And it's something that I really didn't, after I started video, I really didn't touch it again for a long time, except for like my own personal branding and stuff. And even then I still don't do like client work specifically for like logos and everything, but okay. I have the base knowledge. The knowledge is there. I know kind of what works together. I know what looks good generally. I'm not a super gifted designer, but, I know what works. And
he's humble. That's what he is. He's the guy's humble.
But it's funny, man. It started just downloading templates on Envato, just like these like Artlist type services where you can go in, download stock footage, assets and stuff.
If you guys aren't familiar with a lot of this stuff, we have a ton of third-party services that we use to be able to create the content for you.
Yeah, anyway. This is not all, I know it seems like it with how amazing we are, but it's not all completely from the ground up. We have a lot of help from plugins and assets and stuff. It's the future. It's luckily we have these things to assist us today. And it started with templates and stuff, and a lot of it still is, but you still have to figure out what looks good. You still have to input the right fonts and colors, and and that's another thing. When we discussed color, it was like, you have to talk with the client, discuss their vision and everything. And I'm thinking about that with graphics as well. If it's going to be like kinetic type coming up with like fast like builds and stuff, or if it's just going to be fades like for Meals on Wheels. Because fades are a bit more emotional in my mind. And then stuff like moving is better for energy, motivation, like the West stuff. Our personal testimonials kind of, we like that a bit more energy and kind of more moving aesthetic. You like the movement and stuff. So that's what goes through my mind, man. I do some of it from scratch today, but more so than not, it's just learning what works good together, having the building blocks of my design degree and stuff. And it's pretty simple and straightforward in my mind. It's I find the assets and I tweak them.
What I like is, you got these assets, you got these like, thousands of templates to choose from, or, you have these types of kinematic topography that can be used in different types of ways, but you understand the psychology of what works behind certain situations. Yeah. And that's something that I am not blessed with. My dumb butt does not know how to do that. Go take a look at Myrtle Beast from this past year. It looks like junk. But anyway, here's the thing: is I saw the potential that this guy had, and with being able to bring that to the forefront, and I was so impressed by just all the work you've done so far. I mean,
thanks,
good
dude.
Lord, our testimonial ones, I about freaked out. I was in the car when I saw that come through, and I didn't say that. My wife didn't hear that I was in the car looking at a video. But the fact that we're able to utilize something like that and be able to show the professionalism and the branding and all the things that tie in with 963, I think is so special to how the graphics world works. And at some point, we're going to dive down into the rabbit hole of being able to create like stickers and things like that, surround that kind of stuff, and be able to just brand it and give it some culture so that people can attach to it a little bit more, right? But tell me a little bit about like, what do they teach you in graphic design school that some of that you use right now? Like what are some aspects around that you do use right now?
Some of it is that psychology, what colors evoke what moods, what fonts work better in certain situations. Something like a lot of new age, and pretty much most of what I use these days is sans serifs, just like thick fonts. You know, our branding is nice thick fonts, and like stuff like The Rock, and more new age young stuff is kind of that, but some of the old school stuff is like a nice Times New Roman type font, more kind of what's the word, like I don't want to say like colonial, but you know what I mean, more like old money type stuff, like some of the more ornate stuff. And you know, depending on, and there's several areas of graphics. You know, we're mainly talking about motion graphics that come up during a film, like when somebody says something. You know, it's a pretty common thing to put them up when somebody says a certain thing. It's like when they quote something, I'll put that on the screen. But you know, there's also end cards, there's call to action screens, there's several different things, and you know, those call for some more ornate text sometimes. And like with the microgreens, the woman that grows the microgreens, she has a handwritten font for her logo, so I used that handwritten font on her call to action end card. So just to tie it in with their branding, it's very important to realize, you know, we have our styles and stuff, and it's important to communicate that, but also you have to look at the client and their branding deck. And ideally, you know, in the future when we get more involved with the client and stuff, you know, we'll work with people that have a branding deck, and we'll have our own and stuff. And
no one knows what a branding deck is here at all.
Yeah, no, it's funny, man. But the speakers that I work with sometimes do, and like before I make a recap video, they're like, here's my branding deck, here's how I want my logo used and how I don't want it used. And that stuff is massively helpful. So we learned that in design school, how to build those and how to work with ones that clients give us. And you can kind of, like when you have that base knowledge, I can kind of go on somebody's website. Like you send me the websites typically for the companies, and I can go on there and kind of make
some kind of
a guerrilla brand deck in my mind and be like, okay, I can figure out, I can navigate this. I know what looks good.
Yeah.
And because even then, it's funny. Some of these smaller clients and stuff, they may not know how they don't want their logo used. You know, because it's not used enough. And so you can make informed decisions with graphics, and luckily it's an area that's pretty.
Well, it's interesting because, like, if you look at the different aspects of like this area, like there are some digital marketers in there that work with that I've had to work with clients, and the digital marketers have a very specific way of they wanting their videos and things like the branding within to look, and it's because like they have a long-standing relationship with those clients, and that branding there is more about the actual person themselves and the whole company. And that's kind of what really I want to convey here is that, you know, 963 is not Kyle Massey. 963 is not Michael Lehman. 963 is not Christian Derek Elia.
So it's Eli, dude. The A is silent. It throws everybody off. I think so. Not gonna go into it. No, dude, it's so funny, man. And half the time I don't even correct because I don't care that much. But it's funny, dude. It's Italian, and Elia is the way to say it, but we Americanized it like a bunch of rednecks.
Can you go ahead and like say it with an Italian accent?
It's a Christian Elia. You got to do the sauce hands too. The Elia. Speaking of sauce, though, that also, and I meant to say that with the last question you asked me, I see graphics as a major extra sauce. It's not necessary for everything, but like it's a special sauce. When you add it, and our clients have said this, it's like, wow, you know, that's really
brought the edge.
Like it really is a premium.
Try this
add-on.
Try this. Try to watch Batman with no sound.
Oh, of course, yeah, dude.
Try to watch, you know, Transformers with no sound.
Well, certain. I don't know if you've seen. It's kind of a more like indie film, but it has like a cult following. But have you seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that movie with no graphics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the comic book things that came off.
People don't understand those little nuances like sound, graphics, color, whatever those may be, that are all thrown in those things that give it that extra edge that makes it that wow factor, right? It's those kinds of things where like, oh my gosh, there has to be overlays here. There has to be something. If you watch season 3 of The Boys, like we talked about in the last episode, they actually have like some graphics happening where like there's cartoons and things like that happening. It's kind of interesting, but nevertheless, you know, people utilize that in film all the time. And if you watch any commercial ever, like anywhere, the amount of call to actions, the amount of any kind of graphics that are involved are insane. It's unreal how much people use it, right?
And there's storytelling element, because you know something as simple as a title card is graphics. The credits are graphics. Like, you know, whether they're at the end or some movies have them rolling through the beginning, that's all obviously graphics. And so it's all very thought out, you know, whether or not you think it is, or whether or not you because some viewers it's going to go right over, and other viewers are going to be like, well, I like that little sequence they did there, you know. So it just depends, but whether or not it is like a huge storytelling element.
So tell me a little bit about your process. Like, you know, we create a video, we end up getting the cut fat, or the fat cut, which just simply means putting all the content into the timeline and being able to trim everything down is how we label it. Michael ends up taking care of some of the sound that's in there as well. Then we go ahead and create the flow of the edit. You know, as long as the client approves the flow, then we can send it to graphics, right? Because graphics are a huge part of how a video is completed, but we need the flow done before that. So when you get the flow of a video and the copy, the website, any kind of like titles or anything like that that's involved with this this whole project, what is your process on trying to find something that fits, and what goes on in Christian's mind that makes that switch? Because this dude's a graphics guy, and he has every right to be able to make those decisions based solely on his background and his expertise on it. So what's that process for you like?
So it's the hardest when it's a new video or like a new client, because you got to come up with that first look. You know, fortunately we've been blessed with clients that we've made multiple films for, and we have an established look, and so going forward their graphics will be cohesive. But first, you know, if we have a new video sent over and with like a new client or whatever the case may be, the first thing I do is kind of scrub through the timeline. I get a feel for the energy and the vibe of the video. And I basically, in Premiere, you can set markers. You can hit M on the keyboard and it'll set. So I'll set markers and try to evenly space them, because you don't want to have a video front loaded or back loaded with graphics. You want them to be kind of evenly spaced. So I'll find key moments or like key areas, and I'll mark those, and then I'll search for assets, or if I think I can make this from scratch. Most fades and stuff like Meals on Wheels I did from scratch, but like other stuff that's more high energy, like Next Level Mobility, I find some asset packs and tweak them accordingly. And so, and it's a group effort, you know, like I'll send stuff over to you. Sometimes you're like, hey, can we inject a little bit more of this color here, or can you move this a little bit here? So, and that's, you know, the advantage of us being kind of talented in multiple areas and stuff, and knowing video after, you know, being in love with it and studying it for so long. We know kind of what looks good, what's not. It's very intuitive, and it's very, you know, instinctual almost. For me, you know, when I go into this, it's like after I find the assets, you know, I find a font that I think identifies, or I'll just look at their website and see what fonts are on the website, and I'll find something similar and make sure it matches the mood and everything. And from there, I inject some of their brand colors. I decide, you know, if there needs to be a lot of motion or fades. It depends on the vibe again. And that's pretty much it, dude. And then from there, you know, I'll ship it off to you, and you'll critique it. And most of the time, you know, you're like, great, we'll send it over. But, you know, there's a couple times, and it's like, and I love the feedback, man. It's like, you know, because it just makes me better.
We're just learning together.
And it's like, you'll be like, hey, and I know there was one, and most of the time, like, you know, I fully agree. And it's like, you know, the one, I think it was one of the Meals on Wheels ones or something, I had a graphic come up, and he said, hey, I would like to see their emotion at the end of the video, because I had basically had the graphic leading into the end card or the call to action. And he was like, hey, I really like this emotion. Let's just show her face at the end. Do we think we can cut that final one? And I did it, and I was like, yeah, totally perfect, right choice. I was like, yeah, that was the move. And so I love the collaboration on it as well. You know, he's hyping me up, but it's not all me. You know, it's very it's a group effort. You know, it takes a village. So
again, this guy's modest. He's really good at what he does.
You know, I know that I'm clean with it, man. But you know, we're in this together, dude. So
I hear that.
I enjoy the feedback. I appreciate everything, man. So
dude. Of course, it's been a fun road so far. I'm really excited of what was been done, and you know, we're going to be able to get systems and processes down so good, so easily, so fine-tuned that we're going to be able to know what each other's thinking right before everything. And I think it's going to get to that point, and I really do.
What's funny, the communication that goes on the back end as well. Like at this point, you know, we've done, again, like I said, we've been fortunate and blessed to do multiple films, videos for certain clients. And the latest one he sent me for Meals on Wheels, he literally sent the video and said, do your thing, man. And because like we have the look established. That's what's so cool. The first one's the hardest, and then after that we have a look established, and we have like a library, and we have, you know, like rapport at this point with them, and they know what to expect. And so he sent me the video and said, do your thing. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, cool, let's do it.
And it's really cool to be able to have that, you know, hive mentality. You know, at some point it's gonna get to that for sure. And, you know, having clients like, you know, let's say like Next Level Mobility, I know for a fact we're going to be doing more content with them in the near future. They're wanting some testimonials done. They're going to want more promos in the future. They're going to want micro content, all the types of things that are involved with that. We've got to be able to create those looks very well. And so there's going to be clients that have regular accounts with us that we're going to have to be able to just, you know, hammer out really well. And being able to cultivate those relationships within house, being able to create a culture that we understand, like, hey, like something to do with sports, Kyle's got it. Something to do with real estate, Michael, go. And things of that nature. That's kind of how we're able to niche down within the company to be able to bring about the best in each of us within the company itself. There's not, like I said, man, not one person can do it all. It's just not in the books. So besides that, you know, doing graphics and doing some graphic design and things, are there any special projects or things on the horizon that you've seen come out in the woodworks that you've been kind of excited about that you want to share with
like with us, or just like in culture?
In general, as far as culture and graphics go?
Man, like movements and stuff, I'm a big fan of the Y2K stuff. I don't know if you're familiar. It's basically, The Rock is very Y2K. Like all that wavy text and stuff they want us to do, that high energy stuff, that is very, it's like turn of the century, just kind of like young style. And I really am into that right now. And I know like some of my personal branding is more Y2K style. It's more, and I know, I really don't know the proper name for the movement, but one of the companies that's at the forefront of it right now is called Black Market. And they create these like, it's almost like distressed, kind of like grungy, like it's everything looks like it's like printed or stamped and stuff, and it's just like I love that look. And anytime I can, or you know, a lot of our clients and stuff, that style just doesn't work. But stuff like, you know, maybe with The Rock or maybe with other maybe startups or something, we could get into more of that. That's what my favorite style right now is. But other than that, man, I really enjoy keeping it simple. You know, like I said, with my color style and everything, you know, sometimes less is more, and it's one of those things. Like I said, it's a sauce. You know, you can have way too much sauce sometimes. And so it's like graphics, it can get out of hand really fast. And that's another thing in design school. Like one of the things I learned, like you have to know when to stop. Like when something's finished baking, or you know, you've got to take it out. So you know, graphics can be really fun, and you can find all these assets. You're like, oh man, you know, let me, and then it becomes sensory overload very fast.
Well, it's the same thing with like, you know, we're not going to dive into it too much, but I've had people tell me that, hey, color needs to come down a little bit, like calm down just a pat.
And we're in the lab, man. It's all turning dials.
Exactly. We're having fun.
Oh,
that works. It's great. And clients like, yo, why does my hair look like that? You know, something stupid like that. But it's fun to be able to experiment. That's kind of, you know, that's why we're creative.
And it pays off sometimes too.
You're right.
It pays off plenty.
You're right. Is there an instance like where you've recently done something that you, after you were done with it, you're like, oh, that's a lot. Sent it to a client maybe, and like was like they were like ecstatic.
I mean, dude,
was there something recent?
With us, man, you know, I think some of the Next Level stuff. It was funny with the, what you call it that we did for them, the promo. It was super fast paced, and while making it, and it's funny because we went through a couple rounds of revisions, and while I was making it, I was like, this might be a little too much going on. Like this might, because I know this, it's like basically, you know, for the Next Level Mobility video, it'll be in the portfolio section at some point, but basically it's just a lot of gimbal flying around, like a lot of one take shots, a lot of transitions, you know, and there's a lot of graphics going on, but they kind of are necessary because it tells you, like, basically when they enter the room, it says free client consultation or whatever, and then it'll go into their recovery room or whatever the next step was. And it felt like a lot making it. I was like, honestly, this might be a little, but I mean, I sent it over and you were like, looks great. And it seems like they really liked it as well.
Yeah, so they were ecstatic about it.
Something that I may think is a little too much or something and when I say too much, I don't necessarily mean it's like a bad thing. It's just maybe I overcooked this a little bit. Because on top of there just being a lot of graphics, they were moving and, you know, flying in and stuff. And but it matched the energy. It was a fast-paced video. The gimbal was flying around and everything, so it matched. And that was one that kind of paid off recently. That I was like, this might be a little too much for them, but
it worked. It worked.
And looking back at it now, I'm like, that needed to be how it is.
What's cool about our workflow is that, like, being able to find these brand decks, what you call them, or branding decks. So being able to find these brand decks from these companies that are really very, you know, intuitive, very well built out, very well thought out, we can get those kinds of things and then go pump out a bunch of content, same day edits, right? And so I think that's going to be a huge part of Kyle Oland and Golf Tourism Solutions is that, you know, we're doing a bunch of content, same day edits. We're going to have some long freaking days coming up with those. And that's okay because we don't do it that often. But the fact of the matter is we have the ability and capability to be able to do that kind of thing. When we go into the meeting, I think in next week or week after, something like that, they are going to be able to tell us, hey, we need this kind of content, this look, this call to action. It needs to be these colors. Great. Sounds good. Let's build that out now so that we can just implement it on every time and get the content pumped out all the time.
For sure.
And I think that's going to be a really beautiful part of being about doing those same day edits. Now, we're going to have the songs picked out already. We're going to have pretty much everything set up in stone where we can just easily pop the content.
And there are cases like that where you're like, you know, whereas most of the time you send me something and I have a little bit of time to marinate on it and stuff, there's other times where you want to do like pre-production for something and kind of like really think it out beforehand. And something like this that involves a lot of planning, a couple meetings beforehand, and like really trying to flesh it out and stuff. I am excited to be able to develop the look to have ready beforehand. That's going to be like rocket fuel for that situation. So that'll be pretty
Christian's
cool.
pumped. He's ready. He's getting going.
Dude,
you know?
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a sprint, but it's going to be cool.
There's when I do my CrossFit events, you get a kick out of this because this is kind of how your style is. But like when I do my CrossFit events, we set up like a huge like home base right before the event actually happens, so that when things need to get dumped and things need to get cut, we have the availability to go straight to that home base, get it fixed, and then throw it out later on that night. We do same day edits for CrossFit as well. And being able to, you know, have the systems and processes in place are such an important part, an intellectual part of being able to make sure that, you know, a company that needs events done is something that we can take care of because we love doing them. It's fun to be there, fun to be on the floor, you know, see all the, I've been spat on before. I've had weights thrown at me, all that kind of crap, you know, but being able to be so involved in the event, we get to be in front lines. We get to be like doing the cool stuff. And so I think that's really neat to be able to take that kind of stuff on. All right, guys. So today we talked a little bit about, you know, graphics, how it works, Christian's awesome background that's involved with it, being able to understand the slew of things that's going to come in our near future and kind of our capabilities behind it. And so with that being said, we're going to kind of wrap up today the episode number 4. And if you guys want to check out the other types of films, we're going to be going through how to build a successful video production company, how we're actually being able to do service our clients with a team setting that's not so freelance, being able to rely on different niches within the company itself, and doing competitions and things of that nature. We're going to end up going to do movie nights and all those types of things. So stay tuned to watch some more stuff. We're going to be able to create more podcasting stuff and go from there. So we appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Peace.